No one prepares you for what happens after a breakup. Not the silence. Not the mornings that feel heavier than the nights. Not the quiet realization that someone who once mattered, no longer chooses you. Most men don't fail because the relationship ended. They fail because of what they do next. Some run. Some numb themselves. Some repeat the same mistakes with different faces. But a few men, quietly, painfully, choose a different path. This video is not about getting her back. It's not about revenge, closure, or pretending you're fine. It's about the 6 choices that determine whether a breakup destroys you, or becomes the moment you finally become stronger than your past. If you're going through loss right now, don't rush. Don't skip this. Because the decisions you make in this season will define the man you live as for years to come. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where we will learn, explore, and share valuable lessons about love. In today's video, I will reveal to you 6 choices that make men stronger after a breakup, a new perspective, helping you better understand the factors that determine a happy and sustainable relationship. Let's explore with me the secrets to building a strong and meaningful love. Before we start, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax. Let all your worries melt away, and let the messages in this video help you calm down and feel the most complete. Are you ready? Let's start now. Choice number 1, stay with the pain instead of running from it. When a relationship ends, the first instinct most men have is to escape. Escape into work. Into the gym. Into another woman. Into noise, alcohol, ambition, or endless distraction. I know, because I did all of that. What I learned, often the hard way, is this. Pain doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It waits. And when it returns, it comes back heavier, quieter, and more destructive. A man becomes stronger after a breakup not by erasing pain, but by staying with it. Stoicism does not teach you to suppress emotion. It teaches you to observe it without becoming enslaved by it. There is a difference. Most men confuse strength with numbness. They think being strong means, I don't feel anything anymore. But numbness is not strength, it is avoidance disguised as control. Real strength begins the moment you sit alone, no phone, no validation, no escape, and say, "This hurts. And I will not run." Pain after a breakup is not random. It is information. It tells you where you attached too deeply. Where you abandoned your standards. Where you compromised your values out of fear of loss. Where you confused love with need. If you silence that pain too quickly, you lose the lesson. Stoic philosophy teaches that suffering is not caused by events, but by our judgments about them. The breakup itself is not what destroys a man. It is the story he tells himself afterward. I wasn't enough. I'll never find someone like her. I wasted my time. I failed. An experienced man does something different. He lets the pain speak, but he does not let it define him. He feels the grief in his chest. The emptiness in the mornings. The quiet nights where no one waits for his message. And instead of reacting, he observes. He asks, why does this hurt this much? What part of my identity did I tie to her? What did I expect from her that I should have built within myself? This is uncomfortable work. This is lonely work. This is why most men avoid it. But this is where transformation begins. Running from pain keeps you the same man, just busier, louder, and more distracted. Staying with pain reshapes you. You begin to realize something important. You are still standing. The pain rises, and falls. The nights pass. The mornings come. And each time you survive another wave without escaping, something inside you hardens, not into bitterness, but into clarity. You stop romanticizing the past. You stop idealizing her. You see the relationship as it truly was, not as your loneliness paints it. This is where emotional independence is born. A man who has sat with his pain no longer fears abandonment the same way. Because he has already faced the worst. Being alone with himself, and surviving. Stoic love is not about detachment from people. It is about attachment to principles. When you endure pain consciously, you learn that your worth is not granted by someone staying. It is inherent in who you are and how you live. You don't need to prove you're okay. You don't need revenge success. You don't need her regret. You need understanding. Pain is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Every man I respect, truly respect, has gone through a period where he was stripped of comfort, affection, and certainty. And instead of collapsing, he listened. That is what made him dangerous in the best way. Calm, grounded, self-directed. So if you are standing at this first choice after a breakup, understand this. You can run, and stay the same man, repeating the same patterns with different faces. Or you can stay. Sit. Breathe. Observe. Let the pain carve wisdom into you instead of resentment. Because the man who learns to endure emotional discomfort without losing himself is the man who will never again beg for love. He will choose it. Choice number 2, take radical responsibility instead of playing the victim. After a breakup, there is a temptation that feels almost comforting. The temptation to blame. Blame her behavior. Blame her coldness. Blame her timing, her past, her standards, her inability to see your worth. I've been there. Blame gives quick relief. It protects the ego. It allows you to keep your self-image intact. But it comes at a cost. A man who lives in blame surrenders his power. Stoicism teaches a simple but unforgiving truth. You control your choices, your actions, and your character, nothing else. And everything outside of that is noise. When a relationship ends, the untrained mind asks, why did she do this to me? The experienced man asks something harder. What was my role in the ending of this? Not to punish himself. Not to drown in guilt. But to reclaim agency. Playing the victim feels safe because it removes responsibility. But it also removes growth. If it was all her fault, then there is nothing for you to change. And if there is nothing to change, you are doomed to repeat the same story with a different woman. Radical responsibility is uncomfortable because it forces honesty. It asks questions most men avoid. Where did I ignore red flags because I was afraid of being alone? Where did I stop leading emotionally? Where did I expect her to fill a void I refused to face? Where did I abandon my standards just to keep the relationship alive? This is not self-attack. This is self-mastery. A Stoic man understands that every relationship is a mirror. Not a perfect reflection, but an honest one. If chaos followed you, ask why. If resentment grew, ask where you stopped communicating truthfully. If attraction faded, ask whether you grew complacent or dependent. Victimhood keeps your identity frozen in the moment of loss. Responsibility moves you forward. There is a quiet strength in saying, this ended, and I will learn from it. Not loudly. Not publicly. Not as a performance. Privately. With integrity. The man who takes responsibility no longer needs to demonize his ex to feel whole. He doesn't rewrite history to protect his ego. He can acknowledge love and failure at the same time. That balance is maturity. Stoic love does not mean emotional coldness. It means emotional ownership. You don't deny that you were hurt. You deny that hurt gets to define your future behavior. Here is what changes when you stop playing the victim. You stop chasing closure from her, and start creating it within yourself. You stop needing apologies, and start correcting patterns. You stop proving your worth, and start living it. Radical responsibility also dissolves bitterness. Bitterness comes from the belief that something was taken from you unfairly. But when you accept your role, you see the breakup as an outcome, not an injustice. That perspective brings peace. I've met men who stayed angry for years because they never took responsibility. They carried the same resentment into new relationships, slowly poisoning them from the inside. And I've met men who quietly changed everything after one painful ending. Not because they were perfect, but because they were honest. Those men didn't become softer. They became steadier. A man who owns his mistakes becomes dangerous in a calm way. He is no longer reactive. He doesn't argue with reality. He adjusts. Stoicism teaches that suffering comes from resisting what is. Responsibility is acceptance in action. You don't say, "I deserve this." You say, "This happened, and I will grow stronger because I understand why." That mindset changes how you love in the future. You no longer enter relationships to be validated. You enter them to share stability. You no longer fear loss the same way, because you trust your ability to recover, adapt, and improve. Victimhood makes a man fragile. Responsibility makes him resilient. So if you are standing at this second choice after a breakup, remember. Blame feels good today. Responsibility builds a better man tomorrow. And the man who can look at his own failures without flinching is the man who will never again lose himself in love. Love is not always about brilliant moments, but often about patience, listening and accompanying in every small step. It is those simple things that nurture a lasting bond. That is also the reason why I believe that every experience in love is an opportunity for us to grow and become stronger. If you feel this, please click like as a way to spread positivity to more people. And if this is your first time visiting our channel, click subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any lessons. I also look forward to hearing your thoughts. What is the smallest but most meaningful thing you have ever realized in love? Leave a comment below, maybe your answer will become a source of inspiration for others. Now, let's continue our journey to explore deeper perspectives right away. Choice number 3, choose silence and withdrawal instead of explanation and validation. After a breakup, one of the strongest urges a man feels is the urge to explain. To explain what he meant. To explain what went wrong. To explain that he's changed. To explain that he's not the man she thinks he is. I understand that urge well. Explanation feels like dignity. Silence feels like loss. But experience teaches a hard truth. The man who explains is often the man who has already lost his ground. Stoicism values restraint, not because words are bad, but because not every moment demands your voice. When a relationship ends, emotions are unstable. Anything you say in that state is not clarity, it is reaction. And reaction is rarely respected. Silence after a breakup is not a tactic. It is a boundary. It is the decision to step back instead of stepping down. Most men speak because they want to be understood. But understanding cannot be negotiated from a position of emotional imbalance. You don't regain dignity by persuading someone who has already decided to leave. You regain it by withdrawing your emotional labor. This is difficult because silence feels passive. But in reality, it is an active choice. Silence says, "I accept what is. I don't need to convince you. I trust myself enough to step away." An experienced man knows something younger men don't. You cannot talk attraction back into existence. You cannot argue someone into feeling. You cannot explain your way into respect. The more you explain, the more you reveal need. And need erodes presence. Stoic love teaches that love given freely must also be released cleanly. No bargaining. No chasing. No speeches. Not because you don't care, but because you do. Silence protects your inner order. When you stop explaining, several things happen internally. First, your nervous system calms. You are no longer waiting for replies, reactions, or validation. Your energy returns to you. Second, your mind clears. Without constant communication, you begin to see the relationship without emotional distortion. Third, your self-respect stabilizes. You are no longer performing for an audience that has exited the room. Withdrawal is not punishment. It is recovery. There is also a deeper layer most men miss. Silence forces self-confrontation. When there is no one left to talk to about the pain, you finally listen to yourself. That is where insight lives. A man who fills every quiet moment with explanation never hears the lesson. Stoicism teaches that we must conserve our energy for what we can control. Your words cannot control her feelings. But they can control your composure. And composure is power. I've seen men destroy their own dignity not because they were rejected, but because they refused to accept rejection with grace. They begged for clarity. They demanded closure. They over-explained their intentions. What they didn't realize is this. Closure is not something someone gives you. It's something you take. Silence is how you take it. Choosing silence does not mean disappearing in bitterness. It means stepping away with discipline. No dramatic exits. No public declarations. No indirect messages. Just a clean withdrawal. This is not easy. It goes against ego. It goes against fear. But this is where a man regains center. The man who can sit in silence without chasing validation is a man who is no longer ruled by emotional impulse. And that man changes. His posture shifts. His decisions slow down. His standards rise. He stops confusing being heard with being respected. Stoic love is not loud. It is steady. And silence, when chosen deliberately, becomes a form of self-leadership. So if you are standing at this third choice after a breakup, understand this. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your dignity. You don't need permission to withdraw. You don't need the last word. The strongest men I know did not walk away shouting. They walked away quietly, and never returned the same. Choice number 4, turn pain into discipline instead of destruction. After a breakup, pain demands an outlet. If you don't choose one consciously, it will choose one for you. For many men, that outlet becomes destruction. Late nights. Excess. Escapism. Anger disguised as freedom. I've watched strong men slowly ruin themselves not because they were weak, but because they were undirected. Pain is energy. Raw, volatile, relentless energy. Stoicism does not teach you to eliminate pain. It teaches you to use it. The difference between a broken man and a stronger man after heartbreak is not how much pain they feel. It is where they channel it. Destruction feels good in the moment. Discipline feels boring, rigid, almost cruel at first. But discipline compounds. Destruction decays. An experienced man understands something essential. Motivation is unreliable. Pain, however, is consistent. When motivation disappears, as it always does, pain remains. And discipline is the structure that converts pain into progress. This is why the Stoics valued routine. Not because routine is exciting, but because it stabilizes the mind when emotions are unstable. When your heart is fractured, you don't need inspiration. You need order. Simple order. Wake up at the same time. Train your body whether you feel like it or not. Eat clean food. Do the work you committed to. Sleep on schedule. These actions may look ordinary. But in the aftermath of loss, they are acts of defiance. Each disciplined action sends a message to your mind. I am still in control. Pain wants chaos. Discipline denies it that victory. Stoic love recognizes that heartbreak often exposes where a man has become soft with himself. Where comfort replaced standards. Where emotions led instead of principles. This is not shameful. It is human. But it is also a signal. Pain sharpens awareness. Discipline shapes response. A man who disciplines himself after heartbreak is not punishing himself. He is reclaiming authorship over his life. There is something deeply grounding about doing hard things when no one is watching. Not to prove anything. Not to post about it. But because discipline restores self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of masculine stability. Every disciplined choice rebuilds identity. You stop asking, how do I feel today? And start asking, what must be done? This shift changes everything. Pain no longer dictates behavior. It fuels execution. The gym becomes a place of containment, not ego. Work becomes a craft, not an escape. Solitude becomes productive, not empty. Stoicism teaches that the body and mind are connected. Neglect one, and the other follows. When you train your body with consistency, your mind learns endurance. When you honor commitments, your confidence returns. Not because you feel good, but because you are reliable. I've never met a man who regretted choosing discipline after heartbreak. I've met many who regretted choosing numbness. Discipline doesn't remove pain overnight. It changes your relationship to it. You stop asking when the pain will end. You start asking how strong you will be when it does. That question alone transforms you. There is also a quiet dignity that comes with discipline. You don't need to tell anyone how hard it is. Your consistency speaks for you. This is Stoic love in action. You honor your emotions without letting them govern you. You allow grief, but you don't let it destroy your structure. And over time, something subtle happens. The pain loses its grip. Not because it disappeared, but because you outgrew it. The man who emerges from this phase is different. Calmer. More grounded. Less reactive. He no longer needs love to stabilize him. He has built that stability himself. So if you are standing at this fourth choice after a breakup, remember. Pain will either make you reckless. Or it will make you disciplined. One path destroys your future. The other builds it quietly, day by day. Choose the path that makes you unrecognizable to your past self. Love is a great lesson in maturity. It challenges us with fragility, teaches us patience through waiting, and gives us strength after being hurt. Here, I don't just tell stories for you to listen to, but for you to reflect on yourself and find your own lessons. If you find it valuable, please click like and subscribe, so you don't miss out on the shares that can change the way you look at love. Now, get ready with me, because the rest will have a lot more depth waiting for you. Choice number 5, stop searching for replacements and start becoming whole. After a breakup, many men rush to replace. Not because they are healed, but because silence feels unbearable. Because being wanted again feels like proof that they are still valuable. Because attention numbs the question they don't want to ask themselves. I've made that mistake before. And here is the truth experience teaches you. A replacement is not healing. It is anesthesia. It dulls the pain temporarily. But it delays recovery. Stoicism teaches self-sufficiency. Not isolation. Not emotional coldness. Self-sufficiency means your sense of wholeness does not depend on external attachment. When a man immediately seeks another woman after a breakup, he is often trying to outsource stability. He is asking someone else to restore his identity. That is not love. That is dependency disguised as desire. A seasoned man understands something painful but liberating. If being alone feels unbearable, it means the work has not been done yet. Stoic love asks a difficult question. If no one chose you right now, would you still stand firmly in yourself? Most men don't want to answer that honestly. They chase connection before they rebuild coherence. But attraction does not come from need. It comes from presence. And presence only emerges when you are comfortable being complete on your own. Replacing one woman with another keeps the old patterns alive. The same emotional hunger. The same fear of abandonment. The same subtle compromises. The faces change. The dynamic does not. A man who becomes whole first does something radical. He pauses. Not out of bitterness. Not out of fear. Out of discipline. He resists the urge to fill the void immediately. He lets the emptiness teach him what he was relying on too heavily. Loneliness, when faced consciously, becomes a teacher. It reveals where you sought validation, where you avoided self-connection, where you confused attention with intimacy. Stoicism teaches that desire itself is neutral. But uncontrolled desire enslaves. A man who cannot sit with longing will always be ruled by it. Wholeness is built in solitude. Not isolation from the world, but intimacy with yourself. You begin to enjoy your own company without distraction. You make decisions without needing approval. You pursue goals because they matter, not because someone is watching. This changes your energy. You no longer enter conversations hoping to be chosen. You enter them curious, calm, unattached to outcome. And paradoxically, this is what draws people toward you. A man who does not need is a man who can choose. Stoic love is not about denying connection. It is about meeting someone from fullness, not hunger. When you become whole, relationships stop feeling like lifelines and start feeling like additions. You stop rushing. You stop tolerating misalignment. You stop chasing chemistry without character. I've noticed something consistent among men who did this work. They became quieter, but not withdrawn. More selective, but not closed. More grounded, but not indifferent. They stopped asking, "Do you like me?" and started asking, "Does this align with the life I'm building?" That shift is profound. A man who has learned to stand alone does not cling. He does not fear walking away. He does not mistake attention for meaning. He chooses connection. Not because he is empty, but because he has something to share. So if you are standing at this fifth choice after a breakup, remember. Replacing someone too quickly keeps you emotionally dependent. Becoming whole makes you emotionally sovereign. And the man who no longer needs love to feel complete is the man who will experience love in its healthiest form. Choice number 6, redefine yourself instead of returning to the past. After a breakup, there is one temptation that remains long after the pain fades. The temptation to return. Not always physically. Sometimes emotionally. Sometimes mentally. Returning to old messages. Old habits. Old versions of yourself that felt familiar, even if they were limiting. The past offers comfort because it is known. Growth demands uncertainty. Stoicism teaches that a man must not be attached to what he once was. Attachment to identity is as dangerous as attachment to people. Many men fail not because the relationship ended, but because they try to continue life as the same man who entered it. That man no longer exists. The breakup has already changed you. The only question is whether you will shape that change, or resist it. Returning to the past feels safe because it requires no reinvention. But safety is not strength. An experienced man understands that life periodically removes what is no longer aligned. Not as punishment, but as correction. When something collapses, it exposes the structure beneath it. This is where redefinition begins. Redefining yourself does not mean becoming colder. It means becoming clearer. You reassess what kind of man you are becoming. What standards you will no longer compromise. What behaviors you will no longer tolerate, from yourself or others. Stoic love is rooted in values, not nostalgia. You stop asking, what could I have done to keep her? And start asking, what kind of man do I choose to be now? This shift is decisive. You let go of the version of yourself who needed external validation to feel significant. You release the identity built around being chosen, wanted, or needed. You build instead around character. Character is stable. It does not fluctuate with someone's presence or absence. Redefinition requires solitude, not isolation, but distance from old emotional triggers. You change routines. You change environments. You change how you speak to yourself. You stop rehearsing old conversations in your mind. You stop romanticizing what was. Not because it wasn't meaningful, but because it no longer defines you. The man who grows stronger after heartbreak does not return to who he was before love. He moves forward as someone more deliberate. He integrates the lessons without dragging the weight. Stoicism teaches acceptance of impermanence. Nothing is meant to stay, not people, not roles, not versions of yourself. When you accept this, you stop clinging. You stop seeking familiarity. You stop fearing the unknown. And this is where true confidence emerges. Not the loud kind. The quiet certainty of a man who knows he can rebuild. I've seen men try to resurrect old relationships because they didn't want to face a new identity. And I've seen men walk away, not because they stopped caring, but because they respected the evolution they were undergoing. The second group always grew stronger. Redefinition is not instant. It happens through consistent choices aligned with values. You become more intentional with your time. More selective with your energy. More disciplined with your focus. You no longer orbit relationships. You build a life, and invite others into it. That is the final transformation. A man who redefines himself after heartbreak does not fear loss anymore. He understands that nothing external can take away what he has built internally. So if you are standing at this final choice, remember. Returning to the past may feel comforting, but it will cost you growth. Redefining yourself is uncomfortable, but it creates a future you respect. And the man who walks forward without bitterness, without attachment, and without fear, is the man who has truly mastered love. Not by holding on, but by letting go with strength. Conclusion. A breakup does not break a man. It reveals him. It exposes where he was dependent, where he was unprepared, and where he surrendered his center in exchange for comfort. And that exposure, painful as it is not a curse, it is an invitation. The 6 choices you've just heard are not steps to get over someone. They are decisions that shape the kind of man you become after loss. You can run from pain, or stay with it and learn. You can blame, or take responsibility and grow. You can explain, or remain silent and regain your ground. You can self-destruct, or build discipline. You can replace, or become whole. You can return to the past, or redefine yourself. None of these choices are easy. But strength has never been built through ease. Stoic love is not about suppressing emotion or pretending not to care. It is about refusing to let emotion control your direction. A man who masters himself does not beg for love, chase validation, or fear abandonment. He understands that love is something to be shared, not something to be used as a foundation. When you choose correctly after heartbreak, something fundamental changes. You stop needing the world to reassure you. You stop tying your worth to someone else's presence. You become steady. And from that steadiness, everything else improves, your relationships, your work, your peace. The strongest men are not those who never loved deeply. They are the ones who loved, lost, and still chose to evolve instead of harden. Heartbreak is not the end of love. It is the beginning of self-mastery. And the man who walks that path does not just recover. He becomes unrecognizable to his former self. So today's video has ended. Thank you for taking the time to watch it all. I hope you have learned valuable lessons and these shares will help you on your love journey. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to receive more interesting content in the future. I'm very grateful for your support and see you again in the next videos. Wishing you all love and happiness.